Everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Today I have with me Dr. Grant van Ulbrich, because you got your doctorship, wasn't it, only just a couple of days ago?
Last Tuesday I walked, yeah.
And we're going to be talking about transforming sales management, lead sales teams through change. This is Grant's new book. See, he's got one as well. And I've read this, and this is I really love this, Grant.
Oh, thanks.
It's a lovely book, and you talk about your journey. Now, I know the audience here are bored of people's journeys.
Yeah.
Because I've had people, and I'm going to talk about my journey, and people switch off. But actually, there's your journey is so important in terms of the output of this book, and actually in terms of the change that in life. Sometimes some things has to happen for something else to happen.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And you were sitting in a classroom, and these things. Anyway, before we get into, I'm really excited to talk about it.
Oh, glad. Thank you.
Where can people find you?
Right. You can find me on my website, which is scaredsowhat.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. Please, I am heavy on LinkedIn, and I love to connect with people. So just search for my name, Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich, on LinkedIn, and I will be more than happy to connect with you and share.
It's the first time I've ever used QR codes on here, so I'm really excited. So if you scan the QR code, you can buy a copy of the book. And we will be talking about this app in a bit, and if you scan that QR code, and we'll bring them up later on as well. Okay. But because I actually learned how to do that only just 5 minutes ago, I just thought I'd share it because I was excited with myself.
Leading with vulnerability, I love that.
Yeah.
And authenticity.
So Grant, it's a great story. You work for a Royal Caribbean.
Yes, Royal Caribbean International.
Oh, you call it Caribbean, don't you? And I call it Caribbean.
Yes, we do. Very different.
You went back to university at 40 to study sales.
Yeah.
And you're sitting in a classroom, and you suddenly go, and they say, "This is what you got to do, Grant." And you went, "No, I don't agree with that."
It's so well. I thought I was stupid because they were teaching. I was the only American in the classroom here in England. It's a course here by Consalia Sales Business School in Middlesex University, and it's the world's first master's in sales. So I'm sitting here and learning all about change management and how I was supposed to apply these global models on my team. And I just looked dumbfounded, and I thought, I don't like these. Not for what they're trying to make me do. They want me to make me change people. But where's the model for the individual? Where's the model for me? I can reject change. So I very begrudgingly raised my hand to my professors. Here's senior vice presidents of industry in this cohort with me, and I'm the only American. So I'm sure they just thought, oh, great, what does he want? But I said, Professor, I have a question. And I said, do you believe that people can accept change? He said, yes. Okay, great. Do you believe people can reject change? And he's like, yes. And I said, and do you believe that people get stuck in something maybe in between where they just are uncertain about what to do, and we as leaders don't know how to help them? And he said, yes, that's true. I said, these models don't reflect that. These models say that they'll go through a process and they'll magically accept it, and at the end it's done. And I'm here to tell you that that's not how we're human beings react to change. And he went, right. Perhaps you should make the model yourself. And I went, is that my research project? He's like, it is now.
It is now.
So there you go.
So I mean, you actually explain in the book about the change models.
Mm-hmm.
And you've actually spoken to a number of people who either wrote them or they're offspring of the people that wrote them.
Absolutely, yeah. I had some
part of the research for your is it a thesis or a?
Yeah, it's a thesis. It's an actually work-based thesis. Yeah.
Yeah. So you looked into the change models, and there are, was it 6 change models? And you're right, none of them take into account that actually people don't want to change.
Yeah. Well, not even that. They don't know how to. So we as individuals haven't been taught how to manage change for ourselves. And when, I went with my gut on that because I've been through some major change situations in my life, and I've rejected those situations and said, no, this is not going to happen to me. the way you want it to. And in doing so, I was able, through the research, thankfully, I could use Middlesex University's name to approach these global leaders like Daryl Connor. People also reflect on the SARA curve, or the 5 stages of change curve, which is Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us, but her son and her daughter are, and they're the president of their foundation. And when I reached out to them and said, I'm doing research on personal change, they immediately came back and said, well, we'll talk with you about it. Let's have a great conversation. So I was able to get in-depth research from people who actually know about this and created it. So, yeah.
And I mean, it just amazes me that no one seems to have spotted this.
Well, you know, in the research that I conducted, and even through the literature reviews, all of it is written on organizational change. And even when you get to the ADKAR model, which is the closest one that typically tries to implement personal change through the desire. And that's usually where I get most rebuttals. People say, oh, Grant, that's already been done. It's in ADKAR, it's in the D in desire. And I say, what happens when they reject the change? Can you go through with the rest of the model? No. So you don't need to know anything else because they've rejected the change. So your model is defunct at that moment. But those models are all very good at what they're designed to do. They're just missing the individual piece. And that's where scared so what and organizational change to be successful need to be used together. You know, when you look at the research, you go all the way back to John Cotter and his research, and Dr. David Wilkinson, who they defunct the myth that 70% of change fails. That's not true. Dr. David Wilkinson passed that back to John Cotter. What he said was 30% of change management is successful. The rest is somewhere where the organization didn't want to outright failure, leaning more towards outright failure. And when I asked the question of these leaders, I said, well, why is that? And they said every single time it's because the organization forgets to include the needs of the individual. And so when I was speaking with Ken Ross, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's son, I said, my model is specifically for the individual. And he said, Grant, what you're trying to do is facilitate a conversation, which is exactly what my mother did. Yeah. He goes, you have to get to the individual first. You know, we can't implement change on people within entities, within sales, with any organization, unless we know what the person thinks about it. And that's the missing link.
And you know, it doesn't matter what industry we're in or what type of role that we have. I mean, we both work in the sales environment, but sales means change.
Absolutely.
You know, look at the change that we've had over the last 3 years in terms of the pandemic and the move to not necessarily, you know, moving from everybody being in the office to having hybrid working and stuff like that. So
absolutely. And think of our organization, you know, the world's leading cruise line, 62 plus ships, 100,000 employees around the world, multi-billion-dollar corporation. In one day, we went to zero revenue and no passengers, no guests, employees go home. And we stayed that way for 2 years. So how do you then support the thousands of travel agents around the world supporting their customers? It was massive change. And that's where Scared So What was born, in the middle of all of that. So from a test case scenario, you couldn't have asked for a better recipe to test a personal change model. It was just perfect. And it gave us data from all over the world.
So what you've done is part of your doctorate thesis is actually come up with a change model for individuals.
Yes.
Which is the Scared So What.
Correct.
What you keep saying, Scared So What, just to explain to people. And what you've done, I'm just going to take a step forward and then we'll come back, which is what you've done is that you've then transferred that into an app for people to use.
Correct.
Okay. So just so that people know there's an app, let's go back. Let's talk about, walk me through what Scared So What is.
Yeah. So if you think about it, again, think to yourself. So Tim, whenever you have experienced change in your life and you went to a friend or a family member and you said, this is what I'm feeling, what did they say to you? Oh, Tim, just deal with it. Get on with it. Right? You're going to be fine.
It would have been 2 words and one of them would have been off, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they'd have
my own problems.
Exactly. And, you know, because people don't know how to manage change. We haven't been taught that, not in school, not in universities, in churches, in social, anywhere. We haven't been taught how to do that. And the conscious theory that's out there is that you can't express your feelings. Well, that's exactly what I said was not true. And when your body and your mind experiences a change, something's happening. You breathe faster, you get goosebumps, your hair stands up, you start to sweat, etc. Maybe you go into a panic, stress, or anxiety. Well, that's your body telling you to do something. Find something out so you can get through this. And so what we did was we focused on the fear of change, which is metathesophobia. So it's an actual clinical term for people who fear change. And it doesn't matter if it's positive change or negative change. You need a methodology to embrace that. So what I say is scared. Are you scared of the change that's happening to you? Regardless if it's a good change, like you're getting married, or you get a new job, or a negative change, like you're losing your job. So what is it? SCARED. Are you surprised? Are you conflicted? Or do you champion the change? What actions could you take? From there, you're getting information. You're not assuming. You're actually starting to make an informed decision, which is what we want. Are you more receptive to the change, or do you reject it? Which either one is fine, because as human beings, we can reject change. And that's what the other models do not include or account for. Mine does. And then, as action is so important, could you explore any other options before you make a decision? A favorable decision means you're good for it and you want to go forward. Great. Excellent. A negative decision means I don't like this change. It's not for me. And that's okay too. So what are you going to do? Or so what does it mean? There's also a third option, which is called indecision. And this happens to all of us, where you raise your hand and you say, I don't know what to do. I'm concerned. I'm confused. And that's because you didn't take the time. You didn't investigate. You didn't do the actions, and you didn't explore any opportunities to get information so you can make an informed decision. So that's the scared process. And we're giving people permission to critically reflect through the change that happens. And then once you do that, you then go, I'm right. I've made a decision. This is how I feel about this change. So what? What is the strategy? What are your options or opportunities? Do you have a way forward? Then you pause and say, do I have hope, or do I know how I'm going to execute the change in the way I want? What actions will I take? Jot them down. And most importantly, how will I take ownership of the change so that I ensure it happens the way I want and not the way somebody else wants? And that could be just reminding yourself to celebrate because you did it. Or it could be milestones or important dates. So what we're doing is we're saying to people, you can have the power and the ability to reduce stress, reduce anxiety, and make your own informed decisions about change. You don't have to panic about with somebody else. You can critically reflect through the model yourself.
So in terms of the app and using this is for individuals, or it could be that you've got a change program within an organization.
Anything and everything. So the first version of the app right now, what I wanted to do was get this model and the research out to the world. So I've packaged it up in an app, and it's free for all individual use. And so you can download it on Apple or Android, and literally in the palm of your hand, I will teach you what is personal change for the first time. So you learn what it is, you learn about it, and then you reflect on something that's happening, and you can take a quiz. So instantly you can take a quiz, answer the questions, and it will populate your results under SCARED. Green is favorable, red is unfavorable. And then when you push each of the elements, an expert video comes up that tells you exactly what your results mean. And so it helps you to visualize the change and your feelings now versus just sitting here in assumption. And from there, you can go on and you can build your so what plan in a digital way. What is your strategy? And you can share and talk with others to build it collaborative. And that's how you are starting to manage personal change for yourself. So I've made that free for all individuals. For businesses and corporations, look, I've put a lot into this. So if you can afford to buy your members a cup of coffee, guess what? It's less than that. So I license it to corporations, and then I want to work with you so that we can get it into your organization and teach people how to manage change for themselves so that work is successful and that organizational change has a far greater chance for success than just 30%. So that's how we're working on it together.
Okay. And what are you going to be doing, taking it forward? Is it that, have you got a view in terms of, I'm trying to think, is this the minimum viable product? And then what you're going to do is you're going to enhance it going forward?
Actually, I'm enhancing it right now with my developer. We are making a business version for corporate entities so that they can have just a difference of why is there a difference between the free version and why should I have to pay as a company?
True.
So the personal version, as you see today, you can't share your results with somebody. You cannot share your so what with people as well too. So the business version is going to open all of that up and have it unlocked and unrestricted. So if I want as a supervisor to invite 3 people to make a strategy plan together, I could do that. I can share it and we can all see it together. Reporting, access, but you want to keep it private as well. So it's up to the individual because it is personal change. But within the organization, what you want to do, if you're launching any type of change process, you want to be inclusive of the individual. So a leader or supervisor could send a scared quiz out and say, well, how's my team feeling about this change? And once we know through it, we utilize coaching and we get people where they need to be, then we can place an organizational change model on top. But we know that we've included everybody. So as a first step, we're in a better chance of success.
Because I know that when I've spoken to you before, you're very clear about what leadership is and what leadership should look like in 2023.
Yeah.
And that's very different from what maybe leadership was 20 years ago, which is where I would say, right, Grant, you've got you're going to be doing this new territory next year. You're going to be doing this, and this. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And you would say, yes, because I'm the boss. And you'd say,
exactly. Yeah, you're not giving me much choice of what I can say, are you? That's a
because you know very well the last person who said no, I fired.
Exactly.
By the way, this is a metaphor for people watching this. It's not that I do that.
We didn't really do that.
No.
But people do. People absolutely do. And that's transactional leadership. And it's horrible.
Yes.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrible. As I expanded on in my doctorate, I actually created another model that I will be publishing later. And it's a leadership model. And it was so interesting throughout all of my research. All leadership styles are written about academically by themselves. And I just thought, that doesn't make sense. If I'm a mechanic, I've got a tool chest. I'm going to take all the tools to do the job. Why would we not do that as leaders? So I pulled together the 3 that I think were the most robust in any type of leadership pros that you could work. And I called it a new model, Try to Lead. And it's a 3-pronged approach. The first one is you understand what the entrepreneur is, right? Entrepreneurial spirit, right? But you can have an intrapreneur, somebody who practices those skill sets and expertise abilities within the organization. Then the second tool is called narrative hermeneutics. And this is ancient. This goes way back to the Greek days, to where who had the permission to transcribe holy texts and make it into meaning and understanding for the lay people. Well, we use this practice today. It's a methodology used in everyday business, narrative hermeneutics. So who's the person that transcribes a brand into meaning and understanding? And in my thesis, I argue that sales is the practice of narrative hermeneutics, and leaderships can practice that as well too. So example, if you know what Coca-Cola is, great, but does many people know what Royal Caribbean is? Maybe not. So the salesperson has to transcribe that brand into meaning and make understanding for the consumer to be able to say, hey, I want that. And that's a leadership trait as well too, that you could learn and practice. And then the last one, where we were just talking about, is transactional leadership, is where we do not want to be. That is where I'm telling you, you do this, you do that, and wait, I take all the credit, I'm the boss, I'm leading. Well, good for you. How many people are following you? A big fat 0. But if you lead as a transformational leader, you take the jacket off, you sit down beside them, you utilize coaching, you invest, you develop people. And then when the team does the great success and the great work because they're growing, you give them the praise and you sit in the back. You measure yourself by the actions of what your team does and how they grow and how they're promoted. And then how many people follow you then? Everybody. So it's living in today's democracy where everything is based on emotional attributes. You have got to change your leadership style and leadership practice. And that's where Scared So What and this new way of working and leading can help you be more successful.
So that great comment here from Paul Roberts. If you challenge change, it's viewed as you don't believe it. And it's so true that, you know, if you put out that, I'm not sure this is right, you immediately, well, that's because change is you're either for us or against us.
Oh yeah, well, Paul, you're absolutely right, and thanks for the comment. And I've been beaten up by this quite a bit. If you can imagine, trying to be an academic, changing change. That's exactly what I'm doing. The book is called Transforming Sales Management, but it really should be called Transforming Change Management because that's what I'm doing. And so many people will say, "Have you thought of this model? How have you thought of that model?" And typically they go right to, "But the D in ad card, that's all about the individual." And I ask them this one question: what happens if your people reject the change? Your model's kind of broken. It stops right there. Because as leaders, we do not, I mean, think about it this way. Paul, if you're a leader or if you have a supervisor as well, and even you, Tim, or anybody listening, have you as a leader ever asked your team, hey, do you embrace this change? Do you support this change? Are you on board with this change that I'm about ready to execute on you? And do you think that you can help me manage this change? No, we don't talk that way. We go, hey, this is what we're going to do, and you should be doing it. And the company's going this direction. You're all going to follow me.
Follow.
Yeah, exactly. Follow. The wrong words, transactional leadership. Versus, and when you start to have the conversation and say, hey, I want you to soar. How do I help you get there? Utilizing coaching, transformational leadership, sitting beside you, not being, or actually allowing yourself to be vulnerable, sharing, being empathy, care. You're living when you practice that way. You're living in today's democracy, in today's world. So what I have found is I did several podcasts and webinars with Teresa Moulton, who is the editor-in-chief of the Change Management Review.
Wow.
And I loved her response. She flat out came out and said, you know what? This is a revolution because nobody's done this. We do not talk about personal change and your model. And the nice thing is I'm not a threat to organizational change. I believe in it. It's just I want it to be successful much more than 30%. I want that other 70%. So you've got to include the individual.
Grant, so thank you so much for coming on and sharing not just your journey, but your book and your thesis and your expertise. Just to remind everybody, Dr. Grant's book is Transforming Sales Management, Lead Sales Teams Through Change. And if you scan the QR code, you can it takes you to Amazon.com. I've read the book. It's a really, really good book. And it talks you through Grant's journey about change management, because you'll get a question probably from your leadership about why you aren't implementing one of those things. And it also takes you and explains about the app and about Scared So What. And let's put the QR code up again for the app for people to use. And it's free for individuals, isn't it?
Absolutely. Download it, start to learn for yourself and share it. And if you want it inside your business, reach out to me. You can reach out to me through the app as well too. And let's help people grow.
And and just for people to, it's Grant Van Ulbrich, and you're available on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, please connect with me there as well too. I love using LinkedIn and exchanging and sharing. And let's have a discussion together.
Fantastic. Grant, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today. It's been awesome. And thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you, Tim. It's an honor. Take care, okay?
Thanks, Grant. Bye.